What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet. I hope you're all going exceptionally well and enjoy this little video I've decided to put together on naming your characters. We saw a comment a couple of months ago from an account called The Umbrella Man, and it read, "This is off topic, but you guys should do a naming your characters vid. This is the hardest part for me in character creation." So this is our answer to that. More or less, I'll just go through each of these races and talk about how you can name them. If you have any other requests regarding how to make builds or just lore questions in general, feel free to ask them in the comments section. We really appreciate that there's people who love this stuff as much as us, so thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. So first up, one of the biggest helps here is actually the unofficial Elder Scrolls page's website, or UESP. The reason this is so useful for character naming is because they have the names of NPCs from the various Elder Scrolls games divided into races and genders and other categories. There's also some information on naming conventions too, although sometimes there's a lot more information on one race compared to another. Either way, UESP is a great place to head first, not just because you can use any of the names there, but also because you can see a huge list of NPC names. You can kind of work out how you can go about creating your own names. For example, here's how I would approach Imperials. When we take a look at Imperial names, you can see that they take a solid amount of inspiration from Roman names, and while I know there's more influence to Imperial culture than merely the Romans, I'm gonna have to be somewhat general to keep this video under an hour, otherwise I'll spend most of the time explaining the multiple cultures that each Elder Scrolls race was inspired from. That said, even knowing a little bit about the inspirations behind each race definitely helps when it comes to naming. So when we go to the Imperial names section on UESP, you can see they've got both male and female names in vast quantities. We've got the NPC names from Redguard, Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, Elder Scrolls Legends, Elder Scrolls Online, from out-of-game books and in-game lore. So there's male names and the female names, then there's the family names as well. So if you want to be lazy and just have a good Imperial name, I actually recommend just picking a first name and a family name from the massive list here. It's pretty simple. If I'm doing this, what I like to do is pick names that aren't featured in the game I'm playing. So in the case of Skyrim here, we can take an Imperial first name only found in a different Elder Scrolls game like Oblivion, so there's no chance of running into an NPC with the same name as you. After all, you do want to feel unique. When looking at family names, I like to open a bunch I like the sound of in new tabs and look at what kind of person has that last name. It doesn't matter too much, and I just recommend picking what sounds nicest here, but if you are playing an Imperial mage and you find an Imperial family name that belonged to a powerful mage, you could choose that family name, put it with your own first name, and then roleplay that you share their bloodline. There's even Imperial unisex names from Arena, but I tend to stay away from those. They're pretty weird, but you can see all the prefixes and suffixes that you can mix to make them. So what if you want to make a name from scratch? Well, in the case of an Imperial, I actually just Google Roman names. Then I find a baby name website with a bunch, and I find one that I like. In this case, I look it up and I find Sylvanus. This hasn't been used in the Elder Scrolls world yet, but it seems to fit in with Imperial names really well. You'll notice a massive amount of Imperial names end in us. Then I did some research on the name, and it turns out Sylvanus was a Roman deity of woods and fields, a protector of forests, a god that watched over the fields, protecting the boundaries. So with this knowledge, I then decided that it would be the perfect name for either a druid mage or an archer ranger kind of build. Shout out to our Imperial Ranger build. So taking this first name, then I look for a family name. And remember, you don't have to use a family name if you don't want to. You can just have a first name. Anyways, I remembered an Imperial hunter who lived in Anvil from Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion by the name of Panaris Inventius. So I would call my Imperial Ranger Sylvanus Inventius and roleplay that archery is in my blood. So you get the idea here. Look at all the possible names on UESP. Personally, I like to choose ones that aren't in the game I'm playing, which is usually Skyrim, or figure out the inspiration behind the names and go searching for similar names from the real world. The same thing goes for Bretons. Bretons have inspiration from many places, but obviously the real-life Bretons from our history are one of them. Bretons in our world trace their heritage to those who emigrated from southwest Great Britain, mostly during the Anglo-Saxon invasion of Britain. They're a Celtic ethnic group located in the region of Brittany in northwestern France. This is why Breton names tend to have a bit of French French and Celtic influence in the Elder Scrolls universe. That said, Bretons have names that are found all over the UK and Europe, including places like Italy too. Here are some examples so you get the idea. Mirabelle, which is French, Eliza or Eliza, which is also French, Garin, which is actually Gaelic and Irish, Alicio, which is Italian, and Marcel, which is French again. All of these names came straight from the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages list, and they're actually in the Elder Scrolls games, of course, but they're also real names from our world. So again, here what you can do is pick one of these names from the super expansive list, or you can go hunting online for names from countries like this. So if you want to come up with your own, take about 10 or so names that you like, which already exist, see what place of origin comes up the most for the Breton name, then go searching for names of that origin. Same thing with family names, pick one that's there, or use this technique to choose your own. Remember, when naming your character, you can also give them titles, especially Bretons, as they can be quite regal, so you might want to call your character Lord Virelaine. I remember one Breton name I used once was Pierre. Also, on the US page for Bretons, there's some Reachman names from Elder Scrolls Online if you want inspiration for making a Reachman character. But how about Nords? Well, they have huge Scandinavian and Norse influence, as you probably know. Cool names like Ragnar, and more normal ones like Sven. You can simply go through the list on US or Google Scandinavian names or Norse names as a good place to start. What's unique about Nords though is that many have clan names or titles added to their name. Usually these titles come after the first name, but sometimes they can even come before. Also, in terms of a family name, a large amount of Nords don't even have one, so you can just have a first name for Nords. That all said, let's get back to the clan names and titles. Clan names are more set in stone, but titles can change over the course of a Nord's lifetime, meaning that you could put in your backstory that you once had a different title, but then when you got to Skyrim, your newfound reputation earned you a new one. I find these are really easy to come up with on your own, as you just go for what sounds cool and suits the character you're trying to make. For example, ones that already exist in Skyrim are Shadowshield, Silverblood, Stonefist, and Blackbriar. These are all hyphenated too, so consider putting the hyphen between both words when making a clan name. They're usually just a descriptive word followed by a noun, so off the top of my head I can come up with Ice Veins, Mist Song, and Half-Bear. These aren't necessarily the best, but if you sit there for a while, I'm sure you can think of something better. In terms of titles, often these are separated from the first name by the word the. So you have Nords like Olava the Fair, Bitneld the Cursebringer, and Tove the Unrestful. It's really easy to come up with names like this for Nords. So say you're making a mage who's quite unstable in his head for the role-playing. You could call him Tolan the Unstable, or Tolan the Stormbringer. If you want to make a more formal clan name, something like Tolan Lightningfinger would work great. You get the idea. But now let's move on to the coolest cats of Tamriel, the Khajiit. The Khajiit are kind of based on gypsies, but there's other influences too. When naming a Khajiit, I recommend just sticking to the Elder Scrolls world. It may seem kind of tricky at first, but there is a method to it. Khajiits use honorifics in their names and apostrophes, as you would have noticed. Naming Khajiits needs quite an explanation, so here's how that works. You'll want to put honorifics at the start of your name, although during the mid-second era, many Khajiit had them on the end of their name. Personally, I think this is just another weird thing done mostly in Elder Scrolls Online, but if you want to do it, you can. I always put mine in front though. Also, some Khajiit just have a straight name with no honorifics at all, like Kesh and Hasiri. I couldn't give you advice on how to look names like this up, so I recommend picking one from the list on USP, or mixing a few names together to make a name that sounds like it could be a new Khajiit name in Elder Scrolls 6. But let's go back to the honorifics. Not all of them are defined, and they're split into male and female. However, in games you can find females with male honorifics and males with female ones. This means that I won't judge you if you just want to go off the meaning of the honorific and use whatever one you want, but often I like to use them how they're explained in the book Khajiiti Honorifics by Lady Reduratra of Torval. Do keep in mind though that the book splits them into male and female, but says some are unisex. So for females, we have Dra, which is a title of respect awarded to one known for her wisdom and wit, or as a consolation to one who has achieved a venerable age. It is spelt D-R-A. Then there's D-R-A-O, Daro, which is for one who has achieved excellence in the nimble manipulation of loose articles, such as small decorative objects and unattached coinage. It may also be awarded to one with a graceful tongue. Then we have Ko, spelt K-O, which is for respected healers, mages, and scholars, and is also sometimes added to the names of learned ancestors. Then there's L-A, or La, which is an oh-so-fleeting title applied to graceful maidens who are unmarried or behave as if they were. Now for male ones, we have Dar, which is D-A-R, which is potentially the most ancient of all Khajiit titles, earned by those who are nimble in fingers and wits, and are both inquisitive and acquisitive. It's for a clever thief type, and it's said to be applied to politicians at times. Then we have Dro, spelt D-R-O, which is a title applied to wise elders, patriarchs, grandfathers, and those who walk too slowly in front of one in the marketplace. There's Jo, spelt J-O, for respected physicians, scholars, and mages, though it's also frequently adopted by charlatans and frauds. We then have Ra, spelt R-A, which is for an esteemed leader of soldiers, trade, or governance. But like I was saying before, these aren't always used perfectly. For example, in Oblivion, this is used for a female, and at that, a beggar, called Rancid Redursha. Finally, for male honorifics, we have Ri, spelt R-I, which is very rare. This is reserved for great leaders, speakers, kings, and mains. This could be a good honorific to use in Skyrim, as after all, you are the Dragonborn. Then in terms of gender neutral or supposedly neutral, we have Do, spelt D-O, for one who has earned renown as a warrior. This is also often given to someone who has earned distinction on the field of battle or in personal duels. We're told to watch out of those strutting lions who apply the title to themselves, not waiting for others to award it though. Then we have a simple letter M, or an M followed by an A, reading Ma, which is for a young child of either gender, a term of endearment except when it's shouted or snarled. The meaning of Kwa is unknown, and apparently if the name starts with just an S and then an apostrophe, it just means adult. Anyways, I'd just say take a name off of USP and just change out the honorific on the front to suit the kind of character you want to make. Again, I recommend picking names not in the game you're playing, so I choose from Oblivion or Elder Scrolls Online and fix up the honorifics how I prefer. For example, there's the name Nuthander in Elder Scrolls Online. I, making a super powerful Dragonborn leader Khajiit in Skyrim, just put Re apostrophe Nuthander to create the name. The name after the prefix can start with a capital letter or not, that's up to you. Some Khajiit have a Tamrielic name or title as well, so if you want to play a Khajiit raised in Cyrodiil, you could work on creating your own version of names like Sugarlips, Bloodfangs, and Damptail. Finally, you can use honorifics at the start and end, although some consider it quite foolish and I'm not the biggest fan of it. For example, in Skyrim, there's the Khajiit called Marandru Jo. He has both Ma and Jo in his name. Perhaps he kept his title from childhood and then tagged on the new one at the end. Anyways, just food for thought. But now let's move on to Orcs. So the thing about Orcs is that they often have family names that are built in a variety of ways. It's pretty simple, in fact there's way less info on naming for all of the races when compared to the Khajiit. So Orcs have first names, and sometimes they only have first names. If you only want a first name, simply pick one of the many listed in the Orcs names section, or what you can do is type in Orc name generator on Google, and then click one of the top links and pick the names that look most like Elder Scrolls Orc names. Elder Scrolls Orc names are pretty easy to come up with yourself too, just by looking at them all in a list. You can see that the letters A, G, R, U, H, S, L, B, E, K, T, M, N, and O are relatively popular. There's a lot of Ubs and Nashes and Obs, Novs, and Raks. It's a very aggressive sounding way of spelling names, almost like part of the name is what it would sound like to attack someone, like Gorbash. It's spelt as G-H-O-R-B-A-S-H, but it sounds like the word gore as in blood and guts, and bash as in bash someone's head in. You get the idea with first names. It's pretty straightforward to pick or make one, and that could be all you need, especially if you want to roleplay an orphan orc or an orc that never knew his or her stronghold or clan. Other times you might want to add a family name. In the Elder Scrolls, family names for orcs are prefixed with either Gro hyphen and then the family name, or Gra. Gro is for males and Gra is for females. That's spelt G-R-O or G-R-A. There's a few stuff-ups in the Elder Scrolls games, but I think they're typos. But how do you pick a family name? Well, sometimes it's the clan name or stronghold that the orc is from. Other times, if the orc is a male, the name after Gro is his father's name. If female, sometimes the name after Gra is the mother's name. If you want to name an orc this way, just pick 2 orc names you like, pick one as your own, and then put the other one as your mother if you're a female, or your father if you're a male. On some occasions, the child may also receive the name of the parent of the opposite sex. If you're using a clan or stronghold name after the prefix for the last name, you can use a stronghold or clan from the history of the Elder Scrolls, like something from the lore, or just come up with one yourself based on how harsh orc language sounds. Literally just whatever sounds cool. In rare cases, you can also give orcs titles after their first name. Things that sound like Nord last names have even been seen before, such as Baloth Bloodtusk or Bargo Hammerdeath. But now let's move on to the lizards, the Argonians of Blackmarsh. These guys take a lot of inspiration from Mesoamericans like Aztecs and Mayans. That said, they're still pretty alien in their own way, so if you want to come up with your own name, you can Google Aztec names, but you'll want to pick the weirder sounding ones that look like they'd fit in with all the Argonian names listed online, or just pick one from USP. Naming an Argonian, there's kind of 3 different name types. There's one-word names, there's hyphenated names, and then there's Tamrielic or Cyrodiilic names with or without hyphens. If you go the Cyrodiilic name route, I recommend not using one that already exists and just making one up yourself. These are things like Steals Away Clouds, Hauls Ropes Faster, and Tooth in the Sea. As you can see, it tends to just represent something about the Argonian, so if you wanted to have an Argonian who wasn't raised in Blackmarsh or one who just chose to adopt a Cyrodiilic name, for example an assassin born in Cyrodiil, then you'll want something good. I personally would never play a character named something like Smells Like Cheese. It's just not cool, so no thanks to Hauls Ropes Faster. Remember, you can put a hyphen between each word, so I'd create names like Fangs Like Moonlight for a vampire, or Swamp Scales for a green-scaled lonely druid. These names are often used in place of their true Argonian name because it's easier for non-Argonians to pronounce and remember. Other times the name was just given to them and they weren't raised in Blackmarsh. Sometimes Cyrodiilic names are literal translations of Argonian names. Now, if you want a traditional Argonian name, you can either pick one on USP from another Elder Scrolls game, or just Google Aztec names. Now, obviously Argonians don't merely have Aztec names, but I've found that if I take an Aztec name and then just change it slightly to be kind of weirder and more Argonian, it works well. For example, here's a name I can't pronounce. It's spelled Xihuitl. You could just take the Xi, put a hyphen, and then the rest of the name, and it works. Or take Xih, put a hyphen, and then add the end of an already existing Argonian name, like Tul, making Z-Tul. You can literally mix and match Argonian names all day until you get what sounds cool, and then use existing Aztec names to just add little bits to it. For non-hyphenated Argonian names, it's exactly the same. You can usually just not add a hyphen and the name still works. As far as naming from Elder Scrolls Arena, I actually never consider it when I make any of my Argonian characters, and I never really consider arena names regardless of race, because often it's outdated, and it just seems like the lore isn't relevant when it comes to names anymore. For example, Argonians in Arena had names like Tiberius and Julocles, very imperial sounding. Also, since Morrowind, Argonians do not tend to have family names, so I never bother with a last name. But now let's talk about Red Guards. Red Guards are influenced by quite the combination of cultures. There's a bit of Arabic influence, Moorish influence, Ottoman Empire kind of Turkish influence. There's a lot of small details of inspiration you can pick out with them. When it comes to naming your Red Guard character, here's some conventions to keep in mind. Firstly, most Red Guards just have a first name. Secondly, there is a naming convention for creating surnames, but it isn't always adhered to, and is mostly a thing done in Elder Scrolls Online. This convention is for family names or derivation names, as in they are derived from something. So what do I mean by this? Well, some Red Guards can have a last name which corresponds with a place that they're from or a person that they're related to. Like other races, there's a prefix before the place or name. So you put @ before someone you are a direct descendant of, you put af, spelled AF - before a person you are related to, and you put al, spelled AL - before the location you come from. Examples of this are Hosni at Chura, Uwala af Ador, and Shelmar al Bogama. So you can pick a first name from the huge list online and then pick another name to be the person you're descended from or related to using the at or af prefix before it. If it's a location, you can just look up the locations in Hammerfell or wherever you want to come from and put it after the al prefix. That all said, I personally make most of my red guards with just the first name or with a last name that doesn't use this rule. Simply put, the overwhelming majority of red guards did not have family names prior to the Elder Scrolls Online. There are some examples though, such as the Conjurer in Skyrim called Lua Alskaven. There's also the dead Redguard farmer found laying in a tavern within Fort Dunstad named Barrel Sendu. Anyway, so if you don't want to just pick a name that already exists in a previous Elder Scrolls game, what do? Well, I actually Google Moorish names, ancient Turkish names, and Mongolian names. Now, I know Mongolian might not seem like a solid fit for Redguards, but I find that the names themselves seem to match pretty well. Obviously, not all of them, and that goes for Moorish and Turkish too. You have to look at the list of already existing names and try to find real-world names that look like they belong there. Not all of them will look like they belong in the Elder Scrolls world at all. Look at what letters occur the most, how most names are structured, and so on. For example, names I found when I googled Mongolian ones which could fit into Elder Scrolls include Batuhan and Kulan. When I looked up Moorish names, I liked the sound of Satara, Atik, and Afan. And when I looked at ancient Turkish names, I found the best ones. Some were Durakan, Halok, and Kazim. Now, the thing about all these names for all of the Elder Scrolls races is that I may in fact be pronouncing them completely wrong, but if they look right and sound right how you say them for an Elder Scrolls world, then feel free to use them. After all, this is a name for a fantasy character, so do as you wish with it. Same thing for last names. So when I typed in ancient Turkish surnames, I found Uzun and Aslan. So if I wanted to make a Redguard, I could call him Kazim Aslan or Atik Uzun. Remember to check the usual gender of the name you pick to see what you want to do with it. But alright, that's Redguard sorted. Now let's get back into those pesky elves we all love to hate, or love to love. So for the elves, there is a little trouble in simply finding names in real-world cultures, because the naming conventions for these elves seems to be inspired by the traditional Tolkien elves from series like The Lord of the Rings, but also the classical fantasies like Dungeons and Dragons that followed. The Altmer, the High Elves, and the Bosmer, the Wood Elves, both share very similar names, with some nuances here and there, but their names generally sound like you would expect for the generic fantasy elf. For example, you could easily put the names Salanor, Asriel, Mirandil, and Linwen next to names from the Tolkien books like Legolas, Arwen, Galadriel, and Thranduil, and they would fit in seamlessly. An easy way to go about naming your High Elf or Wood Elf is using suffixes like Wen, spelled W-E-N, Wei, just W-E, Il, Dil, Ril, Ya, spelled Y-A, and El, just spelled E-L. The Bosmer names often have suffixes like Or, Oth, On, and In, but there is considerable crossover between the High Elves and Wood Elves in terms of names. So most of the time when naming your Wood Elf or High Elf, you would be able to apply the same kind of suffixes, sounds, and rules. To be honest, if you picked the name of an elf from Tolkien or Warhammer or Warcraft, you'd be pretty safe. So if I were to give a few made-up examples of a Wood Elf or a High Elf male, you could call your character Avandil, Orvenway, Viondel, or Selderon. For a female, names could be Galanwin, Serinya, or Solanwin. As for last names, Bosmer and Altmer generally don't have them, with some random exceptions, but the most significant exceptions would be those of great dynasties, like the Cameron dynasty of the Bosmer, or the Durrani dynasty in High Rock. For Dark Elves, it gets a little bit different. We have some names that are similar to traditional Elven, but we often get names ending in suffixes spelt YN, OS, AS, EN, ES, US, YS, and for females, RA, EA, NA, SI, and NE. They use letters like V, A, Y, E, M, and N plenty to make up the bulk of their names. If I were to list a few names to give you a feel, Dendris, Malkur, Narvin, Sylvain, Vervin, Brelna, Uresa, Malara, and Tanisi. The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind is a great source for Dark Elf names because there are so many Dark Elves in this province with suitable lore-friendly names. Like the case is for many other races, it's easy to take prefixes and suffixes of different Dark Elf names and mix and match to get your own unique combo. For example, you could take the Dark Elf names Salas and Hyath, making a name like Salath, a Dunmer assassin of the Morag Tong, perhaps. Now, the distinguishing factor between the Dunmer and the other elves is the importance of family names. Within the lore, the Dark Elves are incredibly family-oriented, forming clans and houses with great spiritual and cultural importance on the worship of ancestors, so it only makes sense that they should hold on to their family names with great pride. The simplest way to give your Dunmer character a last name is to simply pick one of the many last names that the Dark Elves have in the game of Morrowind, or look at the many ancestral tombs in the game and pick one of those. For example, you could call your character Revan Sadrion or Revan Theralis, after the family tombs. You can of course name your character after one of the main houses, but remember, this implies great connection with that great house, and very likely a significant person, so I would probably account for that in your backstory and role-playing. So hopefully you get the idea of how to name your Dark Elf. The one exception that we have to talk about here is the names of the Ashlanders. You see, Ashlanders have incredibly different naming conventions, names which are particularly crazy. Names like Zabamund, Hainab, Abasil, Yeheredad, Sinamu, Asamanu, and Kushishi. They love the letters S, Z, Y, U, and I, with lots of doubling up, double S, double R, double M, and so on. Their family names are very similar and often much longer, like Samalamus and Aseramusa. Honestly, your best source of inspiration are the Ashlander tribes, but unless you're creating a Dunmer character who was once or still is an Ashlander, you should stick to the normal Dunmer names. And that concludes this lore video I was very happy to make, so thanks for requesting it. If you have any other requests about making builds or just lore questions in general, feel free to ask them in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching this far, we really appreciate it a lot, and we're just so humbled that you like this stuff as much as we do. Social media links are in the description. My name is Michael, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.